to protect the brain. Then they stop the blood flow. They stop the blood flow to the brain, and they physically elevate the patient's head and drain the blood out of the brain, right? During this time, the EEG is completely flatlined during the time it takes to do this. Also, evoked potentials, which are done by placing a 100 dB click sound in the ears. Now, let me tell you what that sound is. As Chris Carter mentions in his great book, right, Science and the Near-Death Experience, as I read that about the clicks, as he describes this case, I'm wondering, well, what is 100 dB? And then there it is, a footnote on that page saying, this is the level standing in front of a symphony orchestra. And a lot of those people do have hearing loss, those musicians, right? He talks about that. But anyway, the signal produced by that click was not picked up on the cortex, by EEG, recording. So she was technically dead during that time. All right. Now, here's the thing. She was able to recount many things during that time, and cardiologist Sabom describes this in his interviews, that she described the tool we use called a craniotome, which means an instrument for opening the skull. And it's like a high-powered saw in a way, but it does look like her description of a toothbrush or some type of electric drill. And she even described the sound, this high-frequency hum that it makes, conversations in the operating room, all of that. And then she describes leaving her body to the top of her head, going and being escorted and meeting her relatives in this other dimension. And actually, she was literally brought back by her great uncle, and he said, you have to go back. And she was afraid, and he said, no, it's like jumping into a pool of water. And he actually pushed her back into her body. And she described that as being just like that, jumping into a pool of ice water. It was shocking for her. She didn't really anticipate how bad it was going to be, and that's why she was reluctant. But the point is, that's a famous case. Now, someone who wants to be skeptical, Raymond and KG, will say, well, wait a minute, 60 degrees, flat line, isn't it possible that at that low temperature, there's still some brain activity producing all of this, even though we didn't record it on these instruments? Then I would cite the case of Melvin Morse, a young girl who in the Pocatello, Idaho YWCA swimming pool, right, was found missing. And they determined that for about 14 minutes, it looks like this child had been underwater drowning. And when she was resuscitated, later, Dr. Morse came across her in a clinic sometime later after this resuscitation. And she said to him, I'm still mad at you for what you did. And apparently he said, what are you talking about? And she told him things about how, when she was brought back, she heard Dr. Morse on the phone talking to someone, and he quoted his statement. He said, what am I supposed to do now? He was calling for help during that resuscitation, what to do. She also recounted some of the nurses' conversations. And here there was no blood flow to that brain, and the temperature of the pool is around 85 degrees Fahrenheit, warm enough that someone could survive indefinitely in that water. So there are a lot of these kind of things that are proof, but what could be more proof, KG, than, as you already know and Raymond knows, and I wish I had experienced, to be there at the bedside and to hear this music, to see this light, and to even see the deceased relatives or friends and the light opening up. Now, what more does it take for someone to understand that? So either all these people are lying when they say this happened to them, or they're telling the truth. And I have no reason to suspect so many people would conjure up a lie, including doctors and nurses and hospice workers. So there's just no question about it. And hopefully this TV series is going to bring this out in all kind of ways. And we're opening our website to the public now, KG. They can go to beyondthereasonabledoubt.tv, where we're discussing these things, people who have worked with EVP or mediums and near-death experiences. And we'd like the general public to say what they think is important. So there's a way they can register on the site by first contacting me through my website. There's a way to email me, and I can look for them to register, and we can open up this discussion so we all start to share these experiences as brothers and sisters.
Oh, that's wonderful. So do you guys have anything further you'd like to share before we close today's show?
Jack?
Well, I think, I'm not sure what you talked about in the hour before with Dr. Moody, but I think that you've covered the shared near-death experiences and how important they are to show that it's not a manifestation of a dying brain. I think that's the key thing that I'd like to leave people with. And I think when they read Raymond's book, and I would read there's several key books he's written. Reunions was a great book about the psychomantium experience, and we hope in a series, Gateway, a spin-off TV series, to be able to put people in Dr. Moody's psychomantium chamber and let them experience some of these things, and maybe to describe their stories. And this may be a long-running TV series, too. So there's a lot on the cusp of the future, so I would recommend.
Well, I definitely see, I definitely was visioning and seeing this image of this room. I don't know, maybe it's this name you've given it. I saw that. So I saw it being like a movie or television, or I definitely see that happening. So
you saw this as a vision, KG?
Yes, I saw that when we were first talking. I saw that happening. Yeah.
Well, the psychomantium, if people will read Dr. Moody's book, they will see that this goes back to maybe Egyptians, the Greeks, and the mirror gazing and scrying, this contact with the dead. And, as Dr. Moody can speak about the ancient times, people would go to experience this, to see their loved ones. So Dr. Moody has recreated this type of chamber in his home in Atlanta, and, he spends time with the people to kind of, ease this process. And once they enter that chamber, and the ones who experience contact with those that departed, sometimes it's not the one they had planned, unexpectedly. But this is what we hope to do in the TV series called Gateway. And Dr. Moody may want to end by commenting on the psychomantium chamber.
Oh, I'd love to hear about that.
Well, yes, this again goes back to the ancient Greeks, and one of the really odd things, really, is that if we were transported back to ancient Greece in the time of Plato, for example, in Athens, 2,300 years ago, we would find the same kinds of debates about near-death experiences going on then as now. All of these early philosophers knew about near-death experiences and vigorously debated the subject. And the ancient Greeks had techniques which actually existed in American culture up till about 1915, as far as I can tell. And this was a very well-known fact, is that you can create conditions into which people will see full-color, moving, three-dimensional apparitions of their departed loved ones in a full state of conscious awareness. And it's really remarkable, I think, that this was just a standard folk practice in America until about, say, 1915. And what I surmise happened at that time was that the radio age came, and then the TV age, and instead of sitting around interacting with things like this, as people used to do in our great-grandparents' day, then we went through this phase of being electronically engrossed in all the radio and later the TV. Yes, but this is it turns out to be remarkably simple to evoke the spirit of reunion with departed loved ones. And I think, this too, I think will... I think the way I see this developing is more along the lines of grief therapy. Some psychologists, for example, in California at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology are teaching this to their psychotherapy graduate students as a modality for grief therapy. And then I think along the lines of maybe establishing, or more definitely establishing that there's an afterlife. I think the going thing now, really, it seems to me, is integrating this information about the shared death experiences, because this has simply got to be intellectually honest now. I think it's going to require us getting away from the old debate about, well, maybe these things are the near-death experiences are just the brain chemistry, because when you bring in the shared death experiences, that old explanation goes out the window, and so now we are into, I think, a whole new era that very shortly now I think we're going to see an enormous shift in the interest in this question of an afterlife, and also a very dramatic change in our ability to investigate the subject from a genuinely rational point of view. So
I agree with that completely.
Yeah, one of my policies that I've always had, Jack, is that I never publish anything until I'm absolutely sure of one thing, and that is that anybody who sincerely investigates this and sets out to try to confirm or disconfirm what I'm saying in this, and I'm referring here to this new book, The Glimpses of Eternity, on the shared death experiences, that the reason I feel completely confident in putting that out is that I'm absolutely assured just from experience that any sincere investigator who looks into this is going to find plenty of cases of this themselves. And so they won't have to take it from me or from anyone else. They can just find it among their own friends and associates. And once that sinks in, then I think the whole investigation of the afterlife question is going to be on an entirely new footing.
Oh, I agree with you completely, Raymond. This is what's going to happen, and physicians and the general public is going to start to change the way they're looking at life and what it's all about. And
yes.
I think we'll treat each other with compassion and kindness.
Yes. So, well, it's been wonderful speaking with you both, Raymond and Jack, on today's show on the subject of near death and the afterlife. And thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, KG.
And thank you, Raymond, and aloha to both of you.
So to learn more about Dr. Moody and his fascinating work on death and dying, please visit his website, lifeafterlife.com. That's lifeafterlife.com. And to learn more about Dr. John L. Turner and his work in spirituality and integral medicine, please visit his website, where you can also subscribe to his blog at johnlturner.com. That's johnlturner.com. Have a beautiful day, everyone. A warm mahalo. Thanks again for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, Raymond and Jack. And I know you're going to have a really successful book launch. So
thank you so much. I just really deeply appreciate you both. So thank you so much.
And thank you, too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.